Excellent. So thank you again, Professor Gu, for making the time to meet with us today. Could I just double check I'm pronouncing your last name correctly? How is it said?
Yes, Gu, Qing Gu.
Excellent. Thanks very much. So as we mentioned, I'm an early career researcher completing my PhD along with my other, professional role. And we're really looking forward to hearing from you today and to learn from your wisdom as a spotlight researcher. So will you just share with us, please, where you're currently employed and what is your main role there?
Okay, I am employed as director of the UCL Center for Educational Leadership at the UCL Institute of Education. I am also, my professional title is Professor of Leadership in Education. So, but I do have the administrative role as a director. We are the UK university-based, the largest research and development center in educational leadership.
Excellent. So it sounds like a very dynamic place to be, and it certainly sounds like your role is a demanding one. So tell us a little bit, please, about in your journey to becoming a researcher of your standing, where else have you worked and what were your roles there?
Right, I started my academic career working for Professor Christopher Day as a postdoc researcher on a research project funded by the UK Department for Education. It was called the Work, Lives and Variation in Teachers' Work and Lives. So VTAP project, that's where I started in, 2004 at the University of Nottingham, the School of Education. So I was a postdoc for 4 years, then I was promoted to become senior research fellow. So I started taking on more leadership role on research projects. I also had my own research project as principal investigator funded by the UK Research Council. So that's those projects and learning really kickstarted my academic career. I was then promoted to be, not transferred, to be a lecturer at Nottingham University in the School of Education. And then quite quickly promoted to become associate professor in about 6 months' time, then professor in 3 years' time. So I started and established my academic career in the School of Education at Nottingham for 14 years.
Excellent, thank you. And I think that's really useful insight for those of us who will be listening to this podcast around the steps that you would have taken in order to be at your standing now as a professor. Will you share with us, please, Professor Gu, how many published works do you have and what are the main types of works you may have published, whether they are articles or book chapters? You may have to go with an estimate here, and that's okay.
It will have to be a big estimate, because I think around 10 books jointly authored and also a single authored book. Some of the books have been translated into English, Japanese, Chinese, Spanish. And in terms of journal articles and book chapters, I've lost track. I honestly can't get estimates. I don't even know. Sorry, it just
no, that's fine. And
not in 3 figures yet, but yeah, it's been quite
perhaps almost there. Yes, thank you. And I think that's really useful for us as early career researchers to perhaps delve into some of your works and get a sense of the breadth of it over time. I'd like to hear from you about how would you describe your researcher identity and how has this identity changed over time?
So let me just talk about 2 things. One is my research area, I started as a postdoc researcher, employed as a qualitative researcher on the Baytime project, Variation in Teachers' Working Lives and Effectiveness. And then the next research project, I was very fortunate. I was mentored by Professor Christopher Day and Professor Pam Simmons. Pam was and has been a leading researcher and figure scholar in the field of school effectiveness and school improvement and teacher effectiveness. So the second research project took me further into the path of quantitative research and the complex quantitative research analysis and so on, and also taking me to the field of leadership. So my work really started with teachers' working lives, and then looked at the impact of school leaders on pupils' academic outcomes and other well-being social outcomes. Then the next phase of my career, I started leading more nationwide national evaluation projects funded by the government. So looking into some system-wide educational reform. So that really gave me a very, I think, very useful and helpful angle to look at teachers' work and nest that in schools in relation to leadership, and then also to look at individual schools' development, the variation in that, linking to the whole system-wide educational change. And that has been tremendously useful conceptually, really adding into my understanding of the research of education as a field. So yes, I mean, I think that's probably, I wanted to emphasize that because for early career researchers, don't ever say, this is not my field. Because the field will always evolve and develop. Every research project is a learning opportunity for us to learn new methodology, for us to meet new teams, and to also learn new content knowledge, really enrich our understanding. But as a researcher, it is very important, therefore, for us to be able to draw the connections between different methodologies, and also between different themes, topics, and to arrive at a much more nuanced understanding of the field. So, and if I give you a small example, if we were bidding for a research project that's before UK left EU. So the funding was from Europe. We weren't successful. The first time weren't successful. That was because of the university error. The bid was not submitted by mistake. That was a huge cost for a 2 million euro bid. And second, so we don't give up, being resilient. It's another thing that I have learned, and it's really important to develop, to be a scholar. So the second time, when the first time we were bidding for this, with Professor Christopher Day, also another colleague, Patrick Callaghan, he's a professor in mental health. So I was heavily pregnant with my son. It was 7 or 8 months. I remember Patrick saying to me, "Qing, you looked huge." And I said, "Your office was too small for me." And then the second time, so we weren't successful. That was quite hard message to take in. Second time, then we saw the funding opportunity from Europe. We applied again. That was, I think, about 3 years' time. We weren't successful. The rating was good, but good wasn't good enough. And the third time lucky, ESRC, the UK Research Council, launched another sustainable development kind of funding scheme. And we then revised and updated. And don't forget, in those 8 years since by the time we applied for the third time, my understanding of the field, the methodology has also evolved, deepened, broadened. So we were successful with a £2 million from ESRC, that's UK Research Council, about how schools as enabling spaces for primary school children in rural communities in South Africa. So we took the project from UK to South Africa. You can't have just a project on leadership, but leadership is at the heart of how we create the space of schools that enable children to develop their academic learning as well as mental health.
That's really fascinating reflections you shared with me today around resilience, around your own stick-to-itiveness and leadership in, achieving these milestones. So thank you for that. You shared already about how your mentorship experiences with Professors Day and Salmons facilitated your development. Can you share a little more about what facilitating or hindering influences you have experienced on your journey to becoming a researcher? So facilitating or hindering influences.
Right. I need to think about the hindering. Facilitating, I think at the heart of it, what I've learned, there are episodes in life I can never forget. One of the episodes was when I first joined my first academic, research job on Chris Day's large research project, 1.4 million. That was, quite a few years ago, funded by the government. I remember there was a piece of work produced by a fellow colleague on the project, and it wasn't up to the standard, wasn't ready for us to use on the writing retreats. So Chris just took it away quietly and redid it. And with Pam, it was the same. I think what we really shared was the curiosity. You really wanted to explore, to understand, and to become really naturally excited when you've identified things, knowledge, evidence that is new. And so I would say one of the really enabling factor I have learned from both of them is a commitment to and also the passion for research. Really wanting, it's not just a job. If you see it as a job, I have to say it's a painful job because you work long hours and you do a lot of basic work. And in those days, it did came across my mind thinking, I'm just doing all these basics. But now looking back, those experiences were so invaluable. I could guide my researchers. When somebody was telling me, Qing is going to take me 2 days, I can say, no, 2 hours, that's all you have. And this is how you do it. All those fundamentals, don't underestimate that. And it is driven by the passion for research. And second is, I have been very fortunate. If you stand on the giant's shoulders, you can see much further. And that's the opportunity I had. And I can't emphasize strongly enough how important it is for early career researchers to have the opportunity to work with professors, academics who genuinely are interested in exploring boundaries, who respect each other's, Pam and Salmons and Chris Day, they come from a very different research methodological kind of traditions and how they respected each other's expertise. And as a offspring, you grow in that very healthy environment. It's not all rosy. You do have debates, you do have disagreements, but that itself would help us to develop the thinking. And it is a thinking that we are developing. It's the skills we are developing. And I really do think that's really, really important. And the third thing is, I said earlier, don't ever say, this is not my research field. And that's something I have learned, observed from my colleagues, my 2 professors, because they were really influential. We're still working together on research projects. Even now, almost 20 years almost. It's that kind of support for each other, and you don't give up. and you see the strengths in each other. I think that would, the most exciting moments often sometimes is actually the coffee time. That's where you imagination fly. And it's, if I don't know, let's find out, or I know somebody who's an expert in that field, let's find out and see the connections. Like the current ESRC projects, it wasn't interdisciplinary as such before a few years ago, but it took us 8 years to turn it into a very strong interdisciplinary research project, to link education with mental health and to explore that in the most, we think, needed research communities. So I think those are the factors I think really influenced me. And the fourth one is appreciate your colleagues. Over the years, I couldn't be where I am if I hadn't been supported by the colleagues who really, we shared the same passion, people who are very strong. It's yes, I think institutional wise, I do think it is luxury to work at universities, to have the opportunity to learn on a daily basis often. So I mean, so you asked me about the negative inhibiting factors.
Yes.
Well, as I said, it's not all rosy pictures. I do have experienced challenging stories in my academic career. I think that's possibly related to the HR side. It's the most important thing. I think it's well, the biggest, you see me hesitating, the biggest barrier is to work in a team where people don't share the passion, the curiosity for inquiry, and to see the research as a job, as a tick box. I've done my hours, and not supporting each other in ways that we wanted to to share something exciting to the research community. I think that it's the biggest barrier for any researcher to move on, because at the end of the day, you will be sucked into all this negative energy, which is prohibiting for any kind of work. And I gave you a kind of example. Pam Sammons used to say to Chris Day very proudly, say, our quant team doesn't stop. We work 24 hours a day. I mean, she is a late night person. Pam would work until 4 o'clock in the morning. I would get up at 4 o'clock to work. And that was a kind of a joke. I'm not promoting anybody to work 24 hours, but that's a kind of a joke. And I didn't see it as a job, because it is a job. You have a deadline, which is annoying. But on the other hand, it is the commitment to quality. And that's what I have learned from both Chris and Pam. They will just take away the work when it's not up to the standards, or we discuss as a team.
Fascinating. I think you've shared so much with us that we can learn from there around curiosity and passion driving the work, and around networking and using the support of others in order to keep the work going over time. So just in closing, I would love if you would share with us 2 things. One is share with us any academic achievements or awards or research impact that you're most proud of. And then in closing, any words of advice or wisdom you'd like to share with our community. You already shared with us around achieving that UKRC $2 million grant, which £2 million grant, which I'm sure was quite a crowning achievement, but perhaps another that you're quite proud of, and then those words of wisdom to wrap us up.
Okay, so the timing is almost right. At the beginning of this month, 1st of September, I learned that I have been awarded or elected Fellow of the Academy of Social Sciences. And there are about,
congratulations.
thank you. There are about 1,500 fellows in the UK. So, and that's, for me, it was a recognition of my contribution to research and knowledge in social sciences, and it's absolute honor to have that fellowship. So yes, that's and the other achievement, the second achievement I'm really proud of is our paper with Chris and Pam was awarded by UCEA as paper of the year in 2016, and with a name I can't even remember, but that we were the first paper that's being awarded that UCEA award to scholars from outside the USA. No, forgive me, in the UK to get that right, because another one was given to Vivian Robinson in New Zealand, but otherwise it was mostly from 2008 being American scholars. So that's, for us, it was a great recognition of the quality of our research work on leadership and how leadership makes a difference to student learning and outcomes. And a word of advice, well, I think never give up, and stay, yes, being resilient, and become genuinely interested in the exploration of the field, and find your mentor who can give you the direction, and do not give up. I kept mentioning this large ESRC grant is not because of its size, because it's taken us 8 years to get to where we are. And that is a journey and story in itself. So, when we had the project, my son was 8 years old. When I first started, I was 7-8 months pregnant with him.
Yes.
And that is just an example of, to our early career researchers, it is normal for us to be rejected, and do not give up.
Excellent. What a powerful message for us to close on. So thank you very much, Professor Gu, for today.